Let's be real. Overthinking doesn't just steal your time, it steals your life. It's like being stuck in a loop where every choice feels dangerous. Every possibility feels like a trap. You're not lazy, you're just exhausted, mentally drained from fighting battles that only exist in your mind. I know this not from theory, but from experience. I spent years locked inside my own head, second-guessing decisions, fearing judgment, chasing perfect answers that never came. And while the world told me to just think positive, I was drowning in noise no one else could hear. Everything changed when I discovered a different way of thinking, one that didn't promise comfort, but clarity. Stoicism didn't soothe me, it confronted me, and that's exactly what I needed. In this video, I'll share 7 powerful lessons drawn from Stoic thought. Not gentle advice, but hard-won truths that helped me break free from the mental chaos. If you're ready to stop overthinking and start living with purpose, keep watching. This might be the wake-up call you've been waiting for. Number 1. Action over analysis. Overthinking doesn't protect you. It paralyzes you. It's like trying to navigate life by staring at a map, but never taking a single step. You end up knowing all the routes, but going nowhere. We've been trained to believe that if we just think hard enough, we'll find the perfect path. But life doesn't reward those who think the most. It rewards those who move. I used to believe that I could outsmart risk, that with enough preparation, I could avoid failure. I had plans, charts, and backup plans for the backup plans. But while I was stuck fine-tuning, life kept moving, and I missed opportunities I didn't even know were slipping away. The ancient Stoics understood something we've forgotten. Clarity comes after action, not before it. You learn by doing, not by thinking. Real progress happens when you're in motion, making mistakes, adjusting, and growing. The problem with overthinking is it disguises itself as wisdom, but what it really creates is hesitation. And hesitation feeds fear. You end up convincing yourself that waiting is being smart, when in reality, it's just fear wearing a mask. Doing something, anything, is better than staying stuck in analysis. Take the first imperfect step. You'll get feedback, you'll learn, and most importantly, you'll change. Whether it's writing the first sentence, making the first move, or launching before you feel ready, momentum is everything. There's no perfect moment, no flawless plan, just now, and what you choose to do with it. As one Stoic insight reminds us, obstacles aren't in the way, they are the way. Every fear, every challenge, every unknown is part of the path, not a block from it. If you face them head-on, they shape you. If you avoid them, they define you. Time doesn't slow down for indecision. Life won't wait for you to be sure. So stop circling the idea in your head. Stop drafting the 10th version of a plan you'll never act on. Start where you are, with what you have. You don't need permission to begin. You need courage. And that comes from doing, not doubting. Number 2. Comparison is the thief of joy. Focus on your path. In today's world, it's easier than ever to lose sight of yourself. With endless streams of polished posts, filtered vacations, and perfect success stories, it's almost automatic to start looking at your life through someone else's lens. But this habit, this subtle, daily act of comparing, is more dangerous than it seems. It doesn't inspire growth. It quietly erodes your self-worth. I've fallen into that trap myself. I used to glance at someone else's career, relationship, or appearance and wonder, why not me? The more I watched, the worse I felt. It wasn't motivation. It was a slow drip of inadequacy. convincing me that I was always behind, never enough, always chasing. But the more I searched outward, the more I lost touch with who I really was. And that's the true cost of comparison. It disconnects you from your own path. You begin shaping your goals around what others appear to have, rather than what truly matters to you. Ancient wisdom offers an alternative. Thinkers like Epictetus taught that fulfillment doesn't come from keeping up appearances. It comes from mastering your own mind. When you stop focusing on what others are doing, you finally have space to figure out what you want and why. Redirecting your attention inward isn't just calming, it's powerful. It gives you clarity. Instead of reacting to what you see in others, you start responding to your own values. And when your choices come from within, they feel real. They hold weight. They last. Choosing to follow your own pace may not look impressive at first. It may even feel slow. But the truth is, lasting satisfaction isn't found in big public wins. It's found in private victories, the quiet discipline, the small steps, the courage to keep going, even when no one's watching. It's also the key to resilience. When your progress isn't tied to someone else's timeline, you're less shaken by setbacks. You're not thrown off course just because someone else seems ahead. You trust your process, even when it's hard. Most importantly, turning away from comparison opens the door to gratitude. You stop fixating on what's missing and start seeing what's already here: the experiences, the lessons, the people who matter. Suddenly, life feels fuller. Not because you have more, but because you notice more. So ask yourself, whose path are you really walking? If you've been chasing a life that isn't yours, it's never too late to return to your own. Let go of the race. You were never meant to follow their route. You were meant to carve your own. And when you do, not only do you reclaim your joy, you discover a kind of freedom no comparison can ever offer. Number 3, you're not that special. There's a quiet kind of strength that comes from realizing you're not the main character in everyone else's story. In a world that constantly encourages us to stand out, be seen, and make an impression, there's something oddly liberating about stepping out of the imaginary spotlight we place ourselves under. The truth: most people aren't thinking about you nearly as much as you think they are. For much of my life, I lived as if every move I made was under public inspection, that every word I said, every post I shared, every mistake I made would be permanently stamped into other people's memory. That belief didn't make me more careful. It made me afraid. Afraid to try, afraid to fail, afraid to be seen getting it wrong. It wasn't reality that was holding me back. It was the illusion of constant judgment. This fear is more common than we like to admit. It sneaks into decisions quietly, stopping you from applying for something you really want, from speaking up when it matters, or from sharing your work with the world. You hesitate, not because the task is impossible, but because you've convinced yourself that a misstep will echo louder than it ever will. What changed everything for me wasn't external validation. It was the slow realization that people are more focused on themselves than they are on you. Their thoughts, like yours, are filled with concerns about their own lives, their relationships, their careers, their doubts. And just like that, I saw the pressure lift. I wasn't being watched. I was free. This isn't about diminishing your significance. It's about rejecting the false narrative that you must perform for others, constantly and perfectly. Letting go of that need doesn't make you invisible. It makes you authentic. It creates space to move through life without second-guessing every step. The ancient Stoics knew this long before the era of social media and endless self-comparison. They urged us to act with integrity, not for applause, but because it's the right thing to do. They didn't teach us to hide or to shrink ourselves. They taught us to stop pretending we're the center of the universe. Because once you stop trying to impress the crowd, you start living for something deeper: personal purpose. When you recognize that your actions, your fears, your ambitions, they're not being broadcast to a world waiting to judge, you start making decisions differently. You stop waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect response, the perfect version of yourself. You begin. You learn. You keep going. You're not insignificant, but you're also not under surveillance. That balance is what gives you freedom. Freedom to fail. Freedom to change. Freedom to live with courage, without the imaginary pressure of 1,000 watching eyes. So next time you hesitate because you're worried what others might think, ask yourself, what if they're not thinking about me at all? What if I'm the one holding myself back, not them? And what would my life look like if I simply allowed myself to try? Let that be your starting point. Let it be the doorway to a life lived not for approval, but for truth. Because once you step out of the spotlight you were never really under, you might just find the space to finally be yourself. Number 4. Perfection is a myth. The endless pursuit of flawlessness often masquerades as ambition. At first glance, aiming for perfection seems like a worthy ideal, something that pushes us to excel, to reach higher standards. But the longer we chase this illusion, the more we realize it doesn't bring fulfillment. It brings exhaustion. It turns progress into pressure, and turns every small imperfection into a source of self-criticism. Many people unknowingly fall into the trap of perfectionism, thinking it will lead to success, but it more often leads to avoidance. When you believe everything must be perfect, you delay starting. You avoid risks. You obsess over minor flaws, and you replay small mistakes until they feel like catastrophes. The result? Projects never get finished. Ideas never see the light of day. And deep down, you never feel good enough, no matter how hard you try. What makes this even more damaging is that perfection is not even real. It's a concept built from comparison and imagination, not from reality. The Stoic thinkers of the ancient world recognized this long before modern psychology caught up. They understood that life's imperfections weren't obstacles to success. They were essential to growth. Seneca once reflected that much of our suffering comes not from what we experience, but from what we imagine. When we visualize a perfect outcome and fall short, as we always do, we feel pain not from failure, but from unmet fantasy. Think about how often this plays out in daily life. You spend hours re-editing a message before sending it. You hesitate to apply for something because your resume isn't flawless. You abandon a creative idea because you worry it's not impressive enough. And in all this hesitation, the opportunity to grow quietly slips away. Stoicism doesn't encourage apathy or carelessness. Quite the opposite. It encourages discipline and intentionality. But it teaches that virtue lies not in perfect outcomes, but in honest effort. The goal is not to erase flaws, but to learn from them. Every mistake, every detour, every unfinished draft, these are not signs of failure. They are the raw materials of mastery. Imagine what your life would look like if you allowed yourself to try things before you were ready. If you welcomed imperfection as proof that you were learning something new. If you gave yourself the same grace you offer others when they fall short. Progress would no longer feel like a burden. It would become a path of curiosity, resilience, and discovery. The Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote that what stands in the way becomes the way. That insight turns everything on its head. Instead of seeing imperfections as things to overcome before life can begin, we begin to see them as the very things that shape us. Challenges, mistakes, flaws, they aren't detours. They are the road itself. Letting go of perfection is not about giving up standards. It's about changing your definition of success. Success is not the absence of error. It's the presence of persistence. It's the ability to keep moving forward, even when the results are messy and uncertain. It's the courage to begin again, not because you failed, but because you grew. There's freedom in allowing yourself to be a work in progress, to live a life where effort matters more than image, where being real is more valuable than being flawless. In that space, overthinking begins to fade. The fear of judgment loses its grip, and life, in all its messy beauty, finally begins to unfold. Perfection is a cage built from your own expectations. But growth, real, meaningful growth, lives outside of it. All it takes is the willingness to take that first imperfect step, and then the next, and then another. Number 5, your emotions lie to you. Stop trusting them blindly. Feelings are powerful. They can ignite passion, spark creativity, and connect us deeply to others. But they can also deceive. Just because something feels real doesn't mean it is real. Emotions, for all their intensity, are not facts. And if we let them sit in the driver's seat, they'll often steer us off course. There was a long stretch in my life where I let every emotion guide me. Fear told me to hide. Anger gave me permission to lash out. Sadness became a reason to stop trying. I believed emotions were a kind of internal compass. But that compass, I later realized, often pointed in the wrong direction. Instead of clarity, it gave me confusion. Instead of strength, it brought chaos. The truth is, our feelings are constantly shaped by forces we rarely notice. Old wounds, passing moods, external pressures, even what we ate or how we slept the night before. A single comment from someone else could spiral into hours of anxiety or days of self-doubt. But does that mean the emotion was justified? Not always. What helped me shift wasn't learning how to suppress my emotions. It was learning how to question them. To slow down and ask, is this reaction true to the moment? Or is it a leftover echo from something else? Is this fear rooted in reality or just in memory? Ancient philosophy, particularly the teachings of the Stoics, emphasizes this kind of examination. They believed that wisdom comes not from eliminating emotion, but from understanding its place. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor who faced war and loss, didn't advocate for coldness. He sought control. And he found that control through thought, not feeling. Let's face it, emotions are unpredictable. What seems urgent today might seem silly tomorrow. An insult that ruins your mood now might mean nothing in a week. Feelings rise and fall like tides. They pass. But the consequences of emotional decisions can linger long after the emotion is gone. That's why slowing down matters. In moments of strong emotion, it's not always wise to respond immediately. Space creates perspective. And with perspective, we're able to see beyond the emotion and into what's actually happening. There's another layer too. We live in an environment that amplifies our emotions. Algorithms feed us fear. Commercials tap into insecurity. Social platforms nudge us toward envy and outrage. Our emotional strings are pulled every day, often without our awareness. And when we're unaware, we become puppets, not participants. To break this cycle, we need more than willpower. We need awareness, the ability to recognize when a feeling is rising and choose how to meet it. Emotional maturity isn't about being unaffected. It's about responding intentionally rather than reacting automatically. One of the most effective tools I've found is presence, staying rooted in the moment without getting swept up by the emotional noise. Instead of drowning in a feeling, I try to sit with it, observe it, let it breathe, and then ask, what's really going on here? This shift changes everything. Suddenly, anger doesn't control you. It teaches you. Fear stops being a cage and becomes a signal. Sadness isn't something to run from, but to listen to, without letting it stop your progress. Let's be honest. We can't silence our emotions, nor should we. But we can stop believing everything they say. We can train ourselves to respond with reason and clarity instead of impulse. That's how you begin to build a steadier, stronger life. Not by becoming unfeeling, but by becoming unshaken. You're not weak for having emotions. You're human. But true strength comes from learning how to carry them without letting them carry you away. Number 6. Detach from outcomes. Modern life constantly tells us to focus on the end result. Success is defined by outcomes, the job offer, the number on the scale, the recognition, the finish line. We're conditioned to chase rewards, measure progress in visible milestones, and fear anything less than total achievement. But what happens when those outcomes don't come as planned? What happens when life, unpredictable as it is, interferes with our goals? This is where ancient wisdom offers something radical. Instead of living in service to results we can't guarantee, Stoic philosophy teaches us to realign our focus away from what we wish would happen and toward what we choose to do. The Stoics believed that our energy should be directed not at what lies outside us, but at the choices we make every moment. They didn't teach detachment as apathy. They taught it as clarity. You don't have to dig deep into ancient texts to feel the relevance of this. Think about any time you poured your heart into something, a creative pursuit, a relationship, a personal goal, and didn't get the outcome you hoped for. The disappointment cuts deep. But ask yourself, was the experience really worthless because it didn't lead to the right ending? Or did something valuable happen along the way that you overlooked? That's the trap. When we measure our entire self-worth based on results, we give the world permission to define our value. And because the world is full of randomness, delays, and variables beyond our control, this leads to constant frustration and a fragile sense of success. The Stoics offer a completely different model. Judge yourself by the integrity of your effort, not the final product. If you acted with intention, discipline, and honesty, if you made the best choices available to you at the time, then you've already succeeded, regardless of what happens next. This isn't a soft excuse for failure. It's a hard standard for presence. Let's bring this down to earth. Imagine training for a marathon. You dedicate months to preparation. But on race day, an injury stops you halfway through. Most would see that as failure, all that work for nothing. But from the Stoic lens, the value wasn't in crossing the finish line. It was in the discipline you built, the commitment, the mental toughness. The process changed you, and that is what matters most. This kind of mindset builds emotional resilience. It softens the blow of setbacks because you no longer see them as personal defeats. You start to understand that effort is its own reward. And more importantly, It allows you to stay grounded in the present. Instead of constantly leaping ahead to some imagined future, you find meaning in the task you're doing now, not because of where it will take you, but because of what it calls out in you. And ironically, the more we let go of results, the more space we create for better ones. When we're not crippled by fear of failure or paralyzed by pressure to succeed, we show up more fully. We make better decisions. We're more creative, more courageous, and more adaptable. When our attention is on the quality of the work rather than the applause, we produce our best. This approach also invites us to live more honestly. Instead of crafting actions around what might be rewarded, we begin to act from values. We write, speak, build, move, not to impress but to express. And in doing so, we become more ourselves. That's the essence of Stoic detachment. Not withdrawal, but inner steadiness. Not ignoring results, but refusing to be ruled by them. As Marcus Aurelius noted in his Reflections, the right action is always enough. What follows isn't our concern. So if you find yourself chasing validation, gripped by anxiety about what might or might not happen, pause. Ask yourself what is truly yours to control. Redirect your energy there. Your attitude, your commitment, your willingness to begin again, even when things don't go your way. In that shift lies freedom, not from difficulty, but from the weight of trying to control what was never yours to command. And when you stop living for the result, you start living for the truth. Your truth in every moment, one choice at a time. Number 7. The present moment is all you have. The human mind has a tendency to escape the present. We relive moments that are long gone, revisiting old wounds or replaying words that can no longer be taken back. Or we drift forward into imagined futures, worrying, calculating, forecasting every possible outcome, as if we could somehow control what hasn't even happened. In doing so, we leave behind the only time that ever truly belongs to us, right now. Stoic philosophy calls us to break that habit. It urges us to return, over and over again, to the reality of the present moment. Not because it's comfortable, but because it's all we truly have. Marcus Aurelius, writing not as a philosopher in theory, but as an emperor immersed in the chaos of life, offered a clear instruction to himself: stay within the present. He understood what many of us still struggle to accept, that peace cannot be found in a memory or in a prediction. It must be claimed here, in this breath, this decision, this single step forward. We often convince ourselves that by obsessing over the past or rehearsing the future, we're being responsible, that we're learning or preparing. But more often than not, we're just avoiding. Avoiding discomfort, avoiding uncertainty, avoiding the vulnerability of showing up fully in the only time we can actually influence. Have you ever sat with someone while your mind was miles away, thinking about an unfinished task, a looming deadline, a conversation you haven't had yet? You were there, physically, but emotionally, mentally, you were absent. And afterward, when the moment was gone, you realized you hadn't truly lived it. You'd watched it pass like a train from the platform, never stepping on board. This is the cost of mental time travel. It robs you of the present, which is where your life is actually happening. The past has already shaped you. The future will come whether you worry about it or not. But the present, that's where you get to decide. That's where you get to act, to listen, to change. Living in the present doesn't mean forgetting what's behind or ignoring what lies ahead. It means not letting those things pull you out of what matters now. You can learn from the past, without living in it. You can plan for the future without being consumed by it. Presence is not about pretending the rest of time doesn't exist. It's about placing your energy where it can actually make a difference. This practice isn't about grand gestures. Often, it begins with a simple return to your body, to your breath, your senses, your surroundings. Feel your feet on the ground. Notice the sounds around you. Tune into the rhythm of your inhale and exhale. These aren't distractions from real life. They are life, the parts we overlook when we're lost in thoughts that aren't serving us. When you become present, even ordinary experiences can become meaningful. A walk, a conversation, a quiet meal. All of these moments deepen when you're truly in them. You start to notice beauty where there was once only routine. You start to respond rather than react. And in that space, stress loses its grip. Overthinking fades. The Stoics weren't offering poetic advice. They were providing a survival tool. In a world full of uncertainty, where loss and change are inevitable, the present becomes a sanctuary. It is where you can live deliberately, not automatically. It's where you can move from passivity to power, not by controlling everything, but by choosing how to meet each moment. And so the challenge is simple, though never easy. Return. Come back to the moment. When your mind races ahead or clings to what's gone, pause. Breathe. Remember that this is where life is. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, but here, in this sentence, in this heartbeat. The more often you return, the more natural it becomes. And what once felt like an abstract idea, be here now, becomes a way of life, a way of being, not to escape responsibility, but to meet it with clarity and calm, not to ignore the world, but to show up for it fully. The past may explain you, the future may inspire you, but only the present can transform you. And that, the Stoics believed, is where your true strength begins. Thank you so much for watching. If this video resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights and experiences matter. Let's continue the conversation. And if you'd like to see more content like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. Until next time, take care and keep growing.